Other towns, other places, other times, listen. A couple of minutes, the first of the tape, and then I'll give you a second that you can edit it or start it for the public consumption. I still plan to send you other cities something in writing that you can use to read to these new attendees. But I continue, since last time we taped, to have inquiries about what seems to be, from your end, problems. And so let me clarify or expand upon what I said last time. For these people coming in to watch tapes and to watch your programs in the other cities, you can let them see this, as a matter of fact, if you want to. I'll leave it to you this little bit. It's the new people, anybody attending, I will admit that this is not the best of circumstances. That is, assuming that I know something and can show you something that you want to know, then this is not the best way of getting it second-handedly. But such is the way things are presently. But if you're going to attend, my general requirements and demands are that if the people in other cities are showing these tapes and are presenting some programs on their own, if you're going to be taken seriously by me at some time in the future, then you be there every time it's humanly possible when they're having a meeting, and you be there on time. The people are presenting, if they are presenting, something that is original with them. They're doing so because I told them to. And if they're doing it correctly, they should be checking themselves if necessary. They're not doing it to show off. They're not doing it to present an ersatz version of some showbiz in a New Age garb. And they should be, I'm telling them now, they should presently go ahead and limit what they're doing to that which is absolute reflections, clear reflections of something I have already given. You should not be trying to give to these new attendees, the general public, as well as I enjoy some of it, writings, ideas, sketches, programs that are almost entirely, insofar as the form, yours original. They should be verbally clear reflections of something I have already stated, something I've already talked about. That is simply to make it easier. It is for the benefit of the new attendees, and it's for the general benefit of this. Consider this a pause, and I will get out something in writing. It's going to be almost the same thing, but you can use it as an apparent vade mecum or a missile from the Pope, and you can wave it in their face and you can read it. But I don't want any debates, I don't want any discussions, and if you people in the other cities, if you will stick to simply doing something that is a clear verbal reflection of something I have done, then among other things you're going to cut down on the new people's inclination at all to debate or discuss it, other than the fact that I'm telling you we don't debate or discuss it. All right? Pause. From one viewpoint, either a question or a statement. My questions, you remember, are rhetorical. They're hidden statements. And all my statements are hidden tricks and kicks and trips to try to get you to go somewhere on your own. So it doesn't really matter. From a certain view, you could look at the kinds of things that I have been dishing out all of these months and years, not as real, in the ordinary sense, new information, but you could see it as being the representation of a whole new generation of processing. Now this is from one view, and I'm bringing it up this way tonight for a particular reason. Anyone who believes they're interested in something extraordinary, no matter what guise it apparently presented itself, no matter what guise you may have originally dreamed that it might exist under, New Age, philosophical ideas, religious ideas, spiritual structures of some kind. There is that belief is wired into people that what you're needing is new information. And the way life is wired up, those apparently running such organizations, generally speaking, when it seems to be what was called New Age or not, when it seems to be something outside the mainstream bourgeoisie, city, established religious, spiritual ideas, when it seems to be that which would attract normally people like you at some time, then it always seems to be based upon the fact that some individual somewhere, the guy running the thing, the woman, the head guru, has some secret new information. But from one view, I could say that as strange and as surprising, as intriguing as some of what I say is, and as useful as it seems to be, from one view, I could say that it's not a matter of new information, it's simply a whole new level of processing of information. Because in the sense of new information that the general run of the yellow circuit and the general run of the higher blue circuit areas where they touch good, the kind of new information they're expecting you don't get, you have not received from me. That is such information as God is a Martian, or your past lies within the internal reflections of a crystal machine ground from Taipei. It's not that kind of new information. And yet that is the kind of new information that the systems are wired up to believe that they're seeking. In one sense, until you take a certain jump, until you fall over a certain ledge yourself, what is going on here is a kind of pushing, is a kind of trickery, and you begin to process the information that you already have in a new way. Because from one view, if I give you a second, from one view, all the stuff I talk about is not all that strange. Now, if you begin to hear it in the higher parts of your potentially activated nervous system, you very shortly understand, all right, in a sense it's not weird, but I could not go out and talk to my Uncle Hubert about it. I could not call home and say, Mom, will you hear what I heard tonight? And start talking, you start trying to repeat about me talking about people always engaged in a dance. Not only individuals, not only people of the same sex, that has nothing to do with sex, but one guy in a whole country. And your mother say, I thought you quit smoking that stuff. But in the sense of this kind of thing, that God is a Martian. We're all viruses from a planet that was destroyed. That kind of new information you don't get. As far as the processing, and it started coming close to new information, before you take this kind of jump, this kind of leap, this kind of tricky fall wherein you trip and you fall up instead of down, before that time comes, I could say that there is a meeting between new information and the processing of known information, and that is that on your own you begin to find, with my pushing and trickery, feel, and then be able to use the fact that what passes for ordinary information is only 3/4 of a more complex database, and that all the information that you've already had, all the information is available to everyone, all the information that you had before you ever met me, has not been fully found, has not been fully felt, and has not been fully used, because the nervous system of man attempts to use the information available as though it were complete, as though it were a meaningful whole within itself. And there, if I must beat upon the obvious and kick it around, is part of the problem. Not that there is a secret piece of information that I'd have this figured out, if indeed that you're not just joking, that like I used to suspect that God is a Martian, that if I had this piece of information, it would be as a Rosetta Stone. It would be as the final exposition of what I know. It would be the missing link, and it would all make sense. Think about it. If somebody apparently in the ordinary wiring system of life was wired up to be your dominant dancing partner and came out and said that very thing, God is a Martian, and you accepted it in your heart, you had no choice. It was as though the guy had just flung a spear and hit you. You'd already thought it before, you'd written about it, you'd dreamed about it, and suddenly some guy apparently can come out to you, maybe a whole audience of people, but apparently it hits you, and he grabs you and he says, God's a Martian. and you dance backwards. The belief, although I knew it might get some laugh, there is wired up into the human nervous system, the belief that that would make it all come together, and man, your whole life would suddenly make sense. Now think about it a second. All right. All of you who laugh from the right spot in your system, you simply know that's not true. But you also get at least a fleeting, at the very least, nonverbal recollection, glimpse of the fact that, yeah, not necessarily that example of God being a Martian, but yeah, that is what everyone believes. That is what I believe at line level. That is what I believe in city consciousness. Right now it is more with most of you, especially newer people, getting involved with this. It is a matter of a whole new generation of processing the information that you already have, the information that everyone has. And the primary reprocessing, new processing of it, is that this information is not right or wrong. It's not fallacious. There is nothing being hidden from us in any conscious sense. That is, some humans, human or humans, are not hiding anything from us. It is simply that the full database, all the information available to everyone, is only 3/4, at the very most, is only 3/4 of a greater database that is available, that the nervous systems of a fair number of people, more people than would fit in a Volkswagen at any given time, on this planet, can at least become aware of the fact that what I feel to be wrong in my life, what I've always felt to be missing pieces of information, what I've always felt, on the other hand, was lacking, that I needed to find some way to increase my consciousness so that I could begin to see secret things going on, and spirits and gnomes and all that stuff, and people from outer space. It's not that. It's simply that the information available, the database that seems to be available to everyone, is simply 3/4 of that which can be experienced, can be felt, and can be thought of. But the nervous system, as it is arranged at all times, including the present, fits in. It has, I guess you people, some of you would call it, a direct, ready-made, custom interface, that is what seems to be consciousness, with the information. But part of this arrangement is that all humans feel as though some little something's missing. And it comes out in people as life has various sundry needs. It comes out in people all the way from those trying to get rich, those trying to get famous, those trying to get power over the people, those trying to be prettier, those trying to be more clever. Everyone seems to be, and they are, trying to satisfy this little lack, that something is missing. But people specifically that end up in activities such as this, their belief is, generally, that there's missing pieces of information. They're hidden. And if I had that one little piece of information, probably just one, as many weird and spooky books as I've written, and all of the staggering Mickey Mouse thoughts and daydreams I've had, I bet there's just one little piece. Just one little piece, if I had it, would bring it all together. And many people believe they know what the piece is, such as God's a Martian. And all they need is somebody bigger, that is, that can dance better than they can, forward, to tell them, yes, it's true. And then they go, now it all makes sense. And you know it doesn't. The other alternative being, as I said, is people believe that what I need is to change the way I perceive it's been normally known throughout the ages as like increasing one's consciousness, going into a higher state of consciousness. But then the belief is that I would see all of these secret things going on. I'd be able to see Buddha reincarnated. He would end up and he'd sit in my bedroom and talk to me and tell me old great secrets. But notice, within that full spectrum of religion, metaphysics, there is never been described a necessary interface, which would be man himself, between what seems to be consciousness and whether it can be expanded or not, and information, whether it can be expanded or not. But there is no spot in the ordinary run of man's history, intellectually and otherwise, that says that the real situation is within where this would interface. That is not simply a matter of new information, it is a matter of processing the information you have. And if you can get past that point, then both of them open up. And there are other things to be seen, as I've admitted, but it's not seeing spirits. It's not seeing trolls. It's not seeing invisible people from Mars. It's seeing at the very minimum in your life 1/4 of everything you see now, of a cycloramic view of life. But what you've been seeing had 1/4 of it cut off, hidden. And there it is. And I can assure one and all that stick with this, that once you see that, that will be spooky enough and you won't have to worry about Martians and UFOs. That is entirely, I feel safe in assuring you of this, you will find that sufficiently spooky. You'll be spooked beyond your wildest expectations. What can be spookier than a person looking around and going, Jesus, now I understand it. Is that spooky enough? Of course, it's spookier than that because when you see it, you don't say, Jesus, boy, I understand that. You don't say, I understand that. I don't know whether you heard that on the tape, but it was people from Mars were getting even for me. For not believing in them. Amongst all people doing this, a would-be real revolutionist has got to continually take into account, into his own, into her own accounting, that there are going to be unexpected and unaccountable effects into all of the information and into all of the apparent perceptions, that is, from his side, the consciousness of all apparent information, that the mediums themselves are apparently, and you can look at this from both sides if you can follow it fast enough, the medium wherein you take in information, you take that you are conscious, that the medium is going to add its unexpected, spurious, at least unexpected information. What this amounts to is you've got to understand that there is no such thing out when you get out of the city, when you're attempting to do this, you've got to see that there is no such thing as a benign medium. There's no real good American word that I know of. Benign is jejune. There is no medium sans characteristics. But there is no such thing available in the 3D world as a benign medium. I could point out that one reason some people like you, like people like me, is I come awfully close. But there is really no such thing in the ordinary 3D world as a benign medium. All of the information that I said is already available, all of the information that I said could be processed in such a new way as to belie what is built into the human organism already, that is, the belief that I have got to have brand new information. That all of this is just whetting my appetite, all of this is just increasing my itch. What I want, by God, is new, some real astounding information. All right, God is a Venetian. And of course we can only hope that he's not sightless, because it would really turn him into a joke, wouldn't it? A Venetian blind. The information that's available, whatever it may be, passes through a medium for you to apparently be conscious of it. And the medium is what? It's your own little self. There is no such thing available in the 3D world as a benign medium. The only information that an ordinary person could have that would approach being benign, that would approach being without your personal mechanical processing of information, would be this. Information that was of so little interest to you that you didn't even know that you knew it. Does that sound anything like the E-pool? We won't go into that. I know it makes a lot of people dizzy for me to start that. But the only information that would be apparently available, or that an ordinary person would now have, that did not, or was not already sullied by the medium itself, that's you, would be information of which you had so little interest that you had forgotten that you even knew it. You might even be pistol whipped a little and denied that you ever knew it. Now that would be the closest to information that you might have that had passed through anything resembling a benign medium. That is, assuming that there's information out here, as some of the old spiritual metaphysical systems used to opine. If they hadn't already opined it, I might pine it. I might use it. But the idea that things, life itself, is trying to talk to you. And it's through the blindness of man, through the evilness of the Old Testament serpent, through just general bad luck of being human, these things can't directly talk to you. Now, I am bringing that up to date by pointing out to you that the medium interferes, that the medium is always going to add some non-benign information. But since I have pointed out that there is the possibility of getting closer to non-benign ways to process information, if you had such information, if you had such knowledge in you, it would be the very knowledge that you apparently never use, you never think about. You'd be hard-pressed to even admit you knew it. If I could grab you and shake you and strangle you and say, well, all right, tell me, and I'd start naming things, and I'd finally name something. Maybe I'd pick up some area of, like music. I'd pick up music and say, did you know that the original 4 Beatles were the ones that you know about, that the world knows? They were not the original 4. And let's say that you got almost no interest in music. You know, none. If you're out for a big night in the town, a waiter drops a tray of dishes, you're inclined to, you know, you think the band just got through playing a song. And you might say, all right, I heard that somewhere, I think. And I said, come on, hadn't you read that or something? You said, yeah, I believe so. And it'd be gone like that. Just as soon as I'd let go of the pressure, because you got almost no interest, just almost none. And yet in a sense, yeah, I've read that somewhere. Yeah, I knew that. While I'm here, does anybody find it interesting if I point it out? Since I already tried to get you to look in a certain way at the silliness of how life is done. Again, the belief in subliminal tapes. How about the belief in hypnosis? Not just hypnosis, but in hypnosis to make people recall things that they've forgotten. That almost, life is done again. I suggest to you that life goes somewhere and has a drink with somebody else, and every now and then tells this other somebody, guess what I did? Of course, it's not guess what I did to man, it's guess what I did to myself. That's why I said that The only time that you can, when you know that you're really developing a sense of humor, is when you can pass a mirror and you just can't hardly stand it. So life would not be laughing at you, by the way. It'd be laughing at itself if it had somebody else to tell it to, but guess what I did? But the guess what I did is to talk about, or hypnosis can make somebody remember something they've forgotten. And that's right on the verge. I hate to tell you. That's right on the verge of being the world's greatest inverted trick mirror. To make me remember things I forgot. It's this close to, it's like almost grabbing humanity, that is life inside us, saying, hey, I'm almost going to turn so fast, I'm going to look myself right in the face. And almost makes itself believe it. Like, yeah, I bet you could. Let me keep jumping. How about humanity has always liked to talk about this. I say that, of course, rhetorically. They hadn't liked to talk about it. They didn't dislike to talk about it. They talked about it. You'll have to go back and check with them, and they'll tell you why they did. I have no doubt. Perfection. Humanity and all of its many institutions and all of its many areas always talk about perfection. And that would seem to be the, in fact, payoff, seem to be the goal of people feeling as though they're incomplete, that something is lacking. I've missed something, there's a piece of information I don't have, there's some ability I do not have, there's some strength I do not have, there's some weakness I have yet to overcome. Perfection. Now, let's don't argue the word. Would you also note that humanity has never seen perfection? They can't realize it. It's never there. And forget all the old mythological tales that we offended the gods and so therefore we can't be perfect and all that. Try and look at it again more mathematically. That is, look at it right around you and realize that at least you've got 3/4 of a database that would stagger you. And it's right there, and you do not need the malignant, or you people don't, the malignant media of going through some ordinary institution of religion, philosophy, or what somebody else thought, or even what you thought. Why is it that no one's ever seen perfection? For the first time on this planet, I'm going to explain it exactly, real quickly. Now, I'm not arguing with the concept and the idea. All of humanity believes that things could reach perfection. Of course, I keep saying things. They're mainly interested in man himself, all right? Man himself. But that things could reach a state of perfection. And yet no one will say that they've ever seen that state. Individually, in large groups, that it's just simply eluded us. Now, even you people, before I get to the punchline of this, you people should be reaching the point that right here, if I stop tonight or if I drop dead, at least you should find interesting, hey, life has done it again. It's made everybody, in one way or the other, talk about perfection. That's the goal. Even people that are not spiritual or religious, they'll sit in front of the TV and they'll hear about some new series of rapes, robberies, and they'll begin cursing to themselves. They'll have another beer and think, God damn, everything's going downhill, life's falling apart. What's happening to our neighborhoods and all that. That is a form of the belief in perfection. That we're missing it again. No one believes they have ever seen perfection. And as I've started to say, some of you should by now find it interesting if I stopped right here that, life has done it again. It's just another aspect of it. But here we go. I'm going to tell you why no one has ever seen perfection. Are you ready? I'm going to tell you really why. I'm not going to tell you because the Martians have blinded you to it. And I'm going to tell you really why. Scientifically, using 3D, that is, ordinary consciousness, perception and descriptions of perfection. I'm just not arguing with it. We're going to use it. The reason you cannot see perfection as it is described in the city is when and if. But when things reach such a state of perfection, they disappear. That is it. Using their descriptions now. I didn't make up these descriptions, and I would not have used them. But if something can reach perfection, and if it does, in this world, it turns the corner. It turns the corner, and it goes, and it disappears. It disappears from man's consciousness. It disappears from the individual. If an individual was right interfaced with, right next to, some piece of, something that reached a state of perfection, it turns the corner, it disappears. Not only does it leave the person's realm of consciousness, it falls into dismemory. I have talked around the edges of this. I think even Kyrute, I've allowed him to stick in his 4 and 17 cents worth. For instance, the only habit that a person has conquered, I'm using ordinary terminology again, people in the city, that's part of what keeps them from perfection, right? My bad habits. The only habit that has ever been conquered is a habit that is now part of your dismemory. It has turned a corner and disappeared. Part of the reflection, I can give you another example if some of this is sounding too strange, and I'm trying to make it, or I'm eventually going to try and make it very blatant. The good old Alcoholics Anonymous organization. And I'm not going to get into the new discussion that alcoholism is now a disease instead of a bad habit. But they've had people, they consider it to be very important, and you should be able to see that life does use that with ordinary people. Of alcoholics saying, no, I am not a cured alcoholic. There's no such thing as a cured alcoholic. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. All I can tell you is right now I hadn't had a drink in 17 months or 17 years. It's a daily battle. In other words, they have not, in that area that they had a problem with drinking, they have not perfected that problem. And in a sense, life has made them admit it. If, indeed, let's just stick with this for a second, alcoholism is a bad habit, and somebody overcomes it, they forgot about it. They don't ever think that I'm an alcoholic. If somebody says, are you an alcoholic? They go, you have to think, well, no. Well, didn't you used to be? And then you might say, yeah, you're right, I forgot. But I'm not saying that they're playing some sort of verbal game. You absolutely forget about it. That's the end of it. You never think about it. It has turned the corner and it has disappeared. I'm afraid the moon's in the wrong place for me to bring this up tonight. It's so good and not enough of you are getting it, and I can feel some of you people out there. Also, I've tried to point this out before. I'll try it again. And all of you should know by now this is not social criticism of some sort. But there is a particular kind of unseemly, even a stinky, a smell to people proclaiming that they in some area have reached a state of perfection. They probably wouldn't use that term, but you understand. Success unequaled. That they have reached in some area perfection. And to large parts of life's body, that is, large numbers of people, and especially to you people, it's not criticism of that individual, but something should stink to you. And the person may look to be the living epitome of what they're saying. They may be dressed, unlimited funds, unlimited taste, or they bought the taste. They paid somebody to have the taste. They've done everything. They've got all the trappings. It doesn't seem to be a doubt. It's not a facade that they say, I have reached perfection in the field of whatever it is. Door-to-door sales of encyclopedias. Or I want to be the youngest, richest broker on Wall Street, and I am. And they've got a book to prove it. The book is number one. It's simply somebody, again, people do not normally use this word, but you should hear after these minutes now what I'm saying, that what they're saying is, compared to how they started, and in the relative world of 3D land, they have in some area reached a state of perfection. And in many people out there in the city, they smell something unseemly about this. Now it comes out verbally in other ways, such as at least low-level hubris, the people are too pushy, nobody likes a wise guy, and then sometimes this comes out, and then a third level of criticism will take over, that somebody will talk to the first level and say, well, you're just jealous. You're just jealous on the reason you're criticizing so-and-so. Because the thing is, if a person is still talking about, hence thinking about, this area of perfection, they have not achieved it. If you ever think about it, you have not achieved it. Back to what I started out pointing out in this section, humanity cannot see perfection theoretically, philosophically, the reality, if it ever exists. That is, that some aspect of human life is in some manner deemed to be seriously lacking, flawed, in some manner broken, and that surely, or the person saying this can even detail it, we as sophisticated intellectual humans could perfect this. We can fix it and then even take it to a state of perfection. Surely I don't have to make this any cruder. You're surrounded by it, from religion to social commentary, humanistic views. It doesn't have to be religious. That we can perfect our institutions. We can eventually perfect man. That there it is, there's no doubt. Here's a group of people. They're hungry. Here's a group of people who seem to be socially disadvantaged. Here's a group of people who seem to be continually hostile and trying to cause conflict with their neighboring communities, states, nations. And we see what it is. Some group of us, some intellectual, right-thinking group can see it. And a large part, perhaps a majority in some area of last body of people say that we agree. That's true. That's got to be it. And then they'll say things like, well, why don't we just roll up our sleeves and do the job we know must be done and clear up this mess? And it never gets cleared up. That is, it never gets perfected. But if it did, and if it has happened in the past, it can never be seen because it turns the corner. That if it was something that they called imperfect, a situation, a human dynamic, a set of relationships between people or peoples, and it did get totally fixed, that is, it got perfected by their definition, not mine, by their definition, it would turn the corner, and just like that, it would reach immediately velocity, escape speed, from human consciousness. It would just go. Nobody would remember it. It would absolutely disappear. If things I hadn't even admitted to you yet, one way or the other, but if in the past things have reached a state of perfection, they disappeared. Therefore, there is no ordinary memory, there is no 3D consciousness of anything ever being fixed on this planet. From the good laughter that I'm getting here, and I hear a few, I believe that's in Southern California, perhaps in the upper New England coast. It's part of the dastardly, real scientific aspect of this, as I keep calling it, that strikes some people when they finally hear it. When they hear it, not that I said it, that they hear it, that this is true. And it's not on some spiritual basis, or it's not on the basis of me saying, well, this may sound strange, but I got this directly from the head Martian. He comes to see me and only me, and he tells me this stuff, and now I'm telling you. It strikes the few people, because it strikes them. Can any of you begin to tie this fact together? That is, if anything does reach a state of perfection, it disappears. That is a scientific fact. It is, I'm not going any further along this road, but it is mathematically provable. But I'd have to deal only with you people that could think in 4 dimensions, because I could not prove it geometrically. I could not even prove it. I couldn't prove it through the math as you use it now. But it is mathematically a fact that if the state of perfection was reached, then in a sense, to use some of my Olympic-sized metaphors, the missing piece, the 1/4 would be added onto it, and it would take it completely out of the 3D realm, and it would literally, I keep saying this, I want you to understand, it would be as though this thing, whatever it was, would be as though some gigantic hand had come out of another dimension, and just faster than you can look. That would be, the thing was perfected. It disappeared. Now, a bunch of you laughed when you heard a piece. The only habits that you have overcome, the only habits that you have perfected, some flaw in you, using your terminology, the only ones that you've overcome are those that you've forgotten. If you're still talking about it, if you're still wrestling with it, fuck it. You still got it. Now, you should be able to hear that. That sounds like it's some sort of psychological commentary. That is, if you're only listening with 3D ears. But it's more than that. It's a fact. You still got the habit. You may not literally be drinking anymore or smoking or whatever it is, but you still got the habit. Now, you may say you're better off, and I'm not arguing that. But if that's all that you need, then you don't belong here. Now, that's chicken shit. That's child's play. Anybody can quit drinking. All you got to do is start spitting up enough blood or your liver get big enough. And anybody can quit drinking. That doesn't impress me. Start spitting up parts of your lungs, and all of you 4 packs a day people, boy, just like that, you suddenly decide, well, I think I'll quit smoking. Due to the depth of my insight and the power of my will. So I'm not saying that. But you people listening to this, you should understand. You should be able to hear me whether you like it or not. You have not overcome some habit. You have not perfected something in your life if you ever think about it. If you're still thinking about it, you still got it. It's still part of your nervous system. We got to turn the tape over. Also, you might recall, since I mentioned this time and time again, there's another piece of the reality behind me pointing out that you should not tell yourself what you're doing. You should not tell yourself that you're planning to do something, and you should never tell yourself that you have done something. Not only other people, that it's already a proof if you've got to tell somebody else, hey, you notice anything different about me? Okay, I quit smoking. You'd never guess it, but yeah, I did. You drug it out of me. I wasn't going to brag about it. You wouldn't tell yourself, literally. It would be a 4-dimensional, if you can follow this right quick, if it still sounds too crude or too simple, of what the Alcoholics Anonymous did do, is you would never tell yourself that you had stopped anything. It would always be, but non-verbally. You wouldn't say, well, I'm not cured, but I haven't done so-and-so. It'd be a non-verbal version of that. I thought that'd clear it up. You would find it unseemly. You would stink up your own inner congregation to have yourself make some comment when other people talk about how alcohol's ruined their life, and internally you're thinking about, I used to drink a quart a day and stop like that. You simple shits. You weak nothings. That should make you go, ooh. Not because of some spiritual reason, not because I said so, but there is a physical aroma. It comes from the circuits. Ordinary people don't notice it. They just take it as being part of the stink and stench of life. You know what we do? We're born amidst piss and shit, and we go out the same way. And plus, I'm living in it now, between the beginning and the end. But a real revolutionist smells something else. He begins to understand that, in a sense, these unsavory aromas are arising from my own inner activities. And I can stop a bunch of them. And one of you can always stop is, I refuse to talk to commoners, that is myself, about what I may or may not do or what I have done. The king does not have to explain to every peon in the land, well, all right, I'll tell you why I made that proclamation. I remember the one. It was about 3 weeks. Yeah, I remember that one. Okay, all right, I'll tell you why. Kick the little bastard in the head. Ignore him. Do not tell yourself what you're doing. Now see if you can make this jump. Continuation into self-protection. That I was pointing out a kind of aggression, a kind of willful, controlled aggression. How about someone who apparently in life, and all of you have ample opportunity, and you've already had ample opportunities, that there seems to be someone who is to some degree an anathema to you, someone who has hurt you, someone who's bugged you, someone who's cheated you. And of course, some of you may be wired up that it's an ongoing process, that there are lines waiting outside your house, evidently. It's like hobos if you have a secret marking on a telephone pole next to your house and people just wait for you to come out the door. At any rate, this self-protection that I started mentioning earlier on another tape was what little I talked about it, I was specifically intending it to be that there seems to be other people in life aggressing you. And that there is a way that you finally have to learn to protect yourself. And that all of the words I use, all the description you've got to remember, is lacking one dimension, except for those of you that sometimes can hear real fast and do understand. I've never pointed this out, except some of you know it. We don't put up that little signal on the tape, but this is in a sense closed captioned. That is, there is a parallel commentary going on besides this one. Except I'm doing both of them. But most of you can't pick it up. All you hear is what I'm saying now. But I'm saying something else. It's like piggyback information on this. All right. So there seems to be ways in which a person needs to defend themselves. You've thought that before, but now I brought it out in the open. And it's a revolutionary way. It's just for you people. And it's non-hostile, it's non-physically aggressive, and etc. And it's willful and it's controlled, which is the key element. If you understand that, I don't have to explain anything else. But now let me ask you, what is the opposite if you're going to have to protect yourself from someone apparently being aggressive to you, someone who's going to cost you, somebody that's going to mistreat you? That is, someone who apparently is trying to force you to dance and you don't want to dance, which is the basis, if you recall, I pointed out, of what in the city they call evil. It's one person apparently forcing another one to dance. Are you following all this? Yes. Good. What is the supreme opposite to a revolutionist of like? That is, I like someone, I approve of someone, I'm in favor of someone. What would be the opposite? Now in the city, of course, they'd say, well, it'd have to be dislike, hate. To jump to the supreme opposite is hate. You're wrong. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, and you should know that. Because you've tried to hate people in the past. Does it work? Hell no. Not if you've got a real good adversary. Remember, you people out there, you and your people, I'm using ordinary terminology, and I don't mean it. Because it's closed caption, I'm saying something else. Apparently people intent on misusing you. I'm talking about those that are good at it, as far as you're concerned. In other words, they get to you. Does hating them work? It simply doesn't. You ought to know that. In fact, all the world's religions, the world makes many human philosophers keep pointing out stuff like, those who hate their fellow man only end up hurting themselves. At least they almost told the truth again. What they're saying is those who hate their fellow man don't get what they bargained for. The payoff never comes. What is the supreme ultimate in human terms of like? Are you ready? We're still talking about this kind of necessary self-protection. The supreme opposite is not hate, but it would be blue circuit abandonment. That is, as people would normally say, well, I don't ever think about him. I don't ever feel about him. That is the supreme ultimate opposite of like. Is you no longer feel about them. You can still think about them. I'm not giving you my permission. I'm saying the thought may still come up of the person and the deed, and you can stop the chemical from becoming electrical, that you abandon, you refuse to let the blue circuits heat up. The energy is going to turn into some other form, is going to be converted, and you let it get converted into light. Then, oh yeah, I remember that. And you blue circuit wise turn your head and refuse to feel about them. That, to a revolutionist, is the supreme aggression. Not to hurt them, I'm talking about for your sake, for self-protection, as I completely abandon them blue circuit wise. And you find the energy has got to be converted to something. Now you are jogging along, and for no reason, as far as you can tell, suddenly the person, an old lover, your mother, your father, a business deal gone sour years ago. 2 hours ago, somebody cheated you at a store, the way you were mistreated at Kmart's return counter. Whatever. Well, that's getting too silly. It's really into the personal things that you believe you've been mistreated. And there it is, and for whatever reason, suddenly the picture comes back. The face, the name of an ex-lover, your mother, a relative, whatever. This electrical energy, remember, the circuit has got to be converted into something. It's already there to light. That is, the yellow circuit has got the name and the picture. And under all ordinary conditions in the city, it should then be felt. That's no reason you remember it. God damn them, the way I was treated, the whole feeling. The heat would be the ultimate conversion in this particular one instance of the energy running through you, the recollection of being mistreated. Stop it there. Abandon any blue circuit conversion with that person. That is the ultimate aggression, and that is the ultimate self-protection. And it's not psychological, it's not playtime, it's not maybe. You can simply do it. It is aggression that's unbelievable. It's aggression that's beyond all words, literally. It makes all other forms of aggression seem like nothing. And once you can do it, you'll understand why I've used these terms. And you'll also understand, well, yeah, that's not it, but yeah, I see why you did it, why you called it that. And as always, I suggest, you'll realize the words weren't right, even though you admit it, they weren't right, but by God, I can't think of any better either. It is a form of aggression. It is a form, if I'm not making this clear enough, and remember, I don't mean this and only this, but it is a form of ultimate hatred. Ultimate. And you are protected. And all these other tricks that people apparently try through subliminal, subconscious tricks, psychological ploys, it's like the old problem of trying to armor oneself up to the point that the armor itself has now become your captor. You don't have to worry about those who have mistreated me, those who may attack me again. You put on so much armor, forget somebody else bothering you. You're going to sweat to death. You can't move. This is not a trick. This is not something of telling yourself, well, I feel like that doesn't bother me. Well, hell, it bothers you. You wouldn't remember it. That's what we're talking about. You need protection from it. The ultimate protection, the ultimate hatred is what you're after. And I wouldn't ordinarily use these terms, well, I shouldn't say ordinarily because I don't talk ordinarily. If I wasn't in a hurry, and some new people might get this, fairly new people, I wouldn't say such things as this. But what the hell, we're all getting older. The ultimate hatred, which is the ultimate protection, is to abandon blue circuit relations with the people. It is the supreme hatred, and you'll feel it. You'll understand it. It is necessary protection. That something, and I remind you, I'm not going in now to the people that apparently is doing this to you, that somebody suddenly has done something. And you feel immediately, I am going to be hurt by this. Seriously. Or based upon, I can feel it. There's no sense to analyze it. Somebody just suddenly says, well, I'm leaving you. Nobody knows what to do. Your mother says, I'm leaving with the Amoco dealer down the street. We're going to move to God knows where. Bye. Whatever it was, you immediately understand, I've been hurt. And I'm going to be hurt a long time. What you need is immediate supreme hatred. But the ultimate, the opposite of, well, I used to love my mother until she said this, and now I loved her so much, this is going to kill me. I'll be traumatized the rest of my life. I'll be in analysis. I'll never be able to pay my way out of analysis. What you need is immediate self-protection. And of course, a good revolutionist can move back down his nervous system. I say immediately, you can go back 10 years ago and pick it up. All you do is move back then and immediately find the supreme opposite of like. Well, I thought everything was fine. I thought my mother was happy. And she suddenly said, you little snot-nosed bastards, I'm leaving all of you. Bye, and left. What you need was immediate self-protection. And the opposite, the supreme opposite of, well, I loved her up until that second, is not, well, I'll decide to hate her. That's not the opposite. It does not work. As you should know, since I pointed out, what you have to do is abandonment in the blue circuit. That is the ultimate useful aggression. That is the supreme hatred. And it's not going to hurt them when I say hatred. It is the supreme self-protection. It is willful, it is controlled, and you administer it yourself. It cannot happen by accident. You've never done it. At least any of you think, well, hey, I've done that before. Somebody made me so mad one time that, God, I hate them so bad, I'd just hear their name and I'd throw up. No, you tell me, yes, I quit drinking. Yes, I quit drinking. Hey, did I tell you I quit drinking? You hadn't quit drinking. If you simply hate somebody, you remember them. Or you wouldn't remember you hate them. So you're not free from it. You hadn't been protected. You got to quit feeling about them. As other people say, well, I quit thinking about that. You got to quit feeling about that. It's the withdrawal of feeling. Now let me ask you, why does life so condemn hatred? So condemn it. And I'm assuming even you people in other times and other places that you're beyond fairy tales and mythology and religion. Based upon your experience and based upon all the insane influence, what it may be that I've had on you thus far, to try and ponder, realizing that you're dealing with flawed information, but just what seems to be available. Is there any way that you can rearrange your own processing, perception of the information? Why does life condemn hatred? As it calls it, an aggression. Why? Why could not aggression been the hero in sanctimoniousness, docileness, lovey-doveyness, been the villain? Why could it not? Why does everywhere, socially, philosophically, religiously, of course, everybody, the majority, I say everybody, for all general purposes, the whole body of life roundly condemns hatred. That hatred is, we must perfect man, and the obvious flaw is hatred. He would be perfected if we could simply do away with hatred. Why? What's going on here, topographically, typologically? That there seems to be, as they call it, I don't call it that, but as they call it, hatred just everywhere. That life is just poured hatred just everywhere. It's just running down the streets and it gets on your shoulders. It's hiding in alleyways. And so there's hatred everywhere. But likewise, everywhere there's a voice hollering, fuck hatred, down with hatred. What's going on? May I ask you this? Why not? Does life condemn hatred because it's inefficient or it's too efficient? In the 3D world, it's got to be one of the two. Forget about the gods don't like it. If your idea of gods existed, anyway, they put it here. It's always a matter of energy conservation. It's always a matter of the conversion of the electrical circuit into some other form of energy. So hatred, and I could pick out any number of things, but hatred is a prime example. Hatred is roundly condemned by life, always has been. And so there's only two possible reasons. Either hatred is an inefficient conversion of energy for life's purposes, which, first off, I should have paused there, given a pregnant theatrical pause the first time, so that some of you might go, that's it. So that I could then step on your pecker and say, wait a minute. Or is it because it's too efficient? All right, if you don't think that has any possible validity, remember the 24-hour time lag. What seems to be, regardless now, let's bypass drugs, as I pointed out, and alcohol, seems to have almost an immediate effect upon man's nervous system, his consciousness, if you insist. What else can do that? Hatred. Not lovingness. You can't suddenly turn on somebody. You know this. That a guy's beginning to make little signs, if you knew how to do it, standing at the bar, that he may be about to want to dance with you in a non-pleasant manner, and for you to go, oh, have I told you that from a certain light you kind of resemble Burt Lancaster when your head? You cannot apparently affect the 24-hour lag through what would seem to be positive means. But you can, through what seems to be non-positive, not only affect the situation, but apparently affect oneself. Now, all of you should know this. Am I making this clear enough? All you've got to do, your whole organism undergoes a change that is highly unusual in the run-of-the-mill life of a human being. Extreme hatred, that suddenly somebody has bucked into your car, your brand new Lamborghini, and somebody suddenly has insulted you. All of you got enough temper that somewhere in your life there's that kind of thing that goes just like this, and you right then could, if you have not, but you realize you could actually get into physical conflict with somebody. That you might, under the right conditions, you might could have killed somebody. The point is, your whole organism, the EC gate, is opened up to excitement. And it's on the basis of hatred. You goddamn sons of bitches. And you could kill somebody. You could do them bodily harm, serious harm right then. The 24-hour time lag of what seems to happen at higher circuits, which is what I'm describing, that somebody could insult you, which is not the lower circuits. When somebody turns around to you and says, hey, I was out with your mother last night. That is not the red circuit getting angry at somebody else that's coming up close to you at a bar or somewhere. And if you knew how, well, let's assume that you're fairly sane in the lower circuits, and you look around, and the eyes, the nervous system itself, with a little the nose, that you're aware of the fact, I'm about to get hit. I might should hit first. nonverbal. But when it seems to be going from other circuits first, such as somebody simply insults you, somebody verbally attacks you, going from the higher circuits, somebody says, "You dirty motherfucker." Nobody calls me a motherfucker. They hadn't made any sign to, you just heard it. "Hey, you, the guy with the blue shirt, you dumb motherfucker." It seems to be a bypass of this time lag that I pointed out to you. The people do not take into account that the upper circuits cannot continue. They cannot hold forth when they make a decision, "I'll quit drinking. I will, I will. Right now I feel it in my heart of hearts. Now that I sit here and I've read this article about all the things it does to your body, I'll quit, I'll quit." There's generally a 24-hour time lag before this permeates the entire organism. Specifically, as I was using as the prime example, before the lower circuits take it seriously. It has really no meaning. You should understand that from your own life. How many times have you said, "I'm going to stop so-and-so. I mean it, I mean it, I mean it." And if I could artificially cut off the higher circuits, or just grab your yellow circuit and say, "Are you serious?" And there's some way we could test seriousness and hook it up to a machine, right then you'd be serious. That, yes, I've said that many times and I was always deadly serious. Okay, you're deadly serious. And what happened? You know, the excuse is, "Well, I don't know." It's this. The upper circuits cannot hold, the same way as the lower circuit can, they cannot hold up this apparent decision, this desire. They cannot hold it with that kind of intensity. They cannot hold it for even the 24 hours before it really has an all-pervasive influence over the total organism that you call yourself. And so due to that 24-hour time lag, the higher circuits can make decision after decision. They can proclaim, "I'll do so-and-so," and right then they mean it, but they can't hold it. And it's 24 hours before. It would take a 24-hour holding of that decision, "I will, I will, I will," before the lower circuits, which I assume you do understand have got to say the least, cooperate. It's before they even take it seriously, as though they didn't even hear it. It's just noise. It's just, it's children talking. It's just babble. But what seems to be a shortcut, what seems to be almost a bypass of this situation, is anger. Because it can apparently permeate the whole organism, the entire collection of cells that make you up. Is hatred condemned by life because it is inefficient? It's not the best way to do things? That's what the religions seem to be saying. Not just them, because there's no such things as religions. There's a bunch of people. There's no such thing as people. It's a bunch of life's own molecules. Because a bunch of you have heard stuff that seem to come from some outside source, that love is the answer. And it just makes your little heart tremble. So, it seems that life is saying that non-hatred, that is love, as it's normally referred to, is the most efficient. But if it's the most efficient, how come things haven't changed? How come it doesn't seem to work? Why is it, if you want me to put it another way, why is it that life has made man seem to favor the least efficient? Why are our heroes always those who are aggressed against, not the aggressor? Why is man's heroes always the docile, the downtrodden, not the uptrodden, not the trodders? They're the villains, that is, those dealing in hatred and aggression. Why are those the villains? Why are the heroes those who are aggressed against? What's life trying to say? Is it trying to say anything that you can comprehend or decipher? Is it because hatred is inefficient? What we need is love. Love would do away with all our imperfections. Love would bring us all together. Love would produce paradise on earth. And lots of people's nervous system go patty, pat, 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 yes, yes, yes. But if that be so, why does it seem to have had almost no effect? No effect for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Why is it that life seems to say, here is what you should be doing. Here is what would bring you to perfection, and it seems to select that which is proven to be the least effective. And I'm being charitable in a sense to say the least effective. Am I being charitable? Am I describing it correctly? Or is hatred being condemned because it is too damn efficient? That, yeah, things need to change. I need to grow. I'm trying to grow, says life. But there's a right speed for everything. Now, I don't go too fast here. What if it is what we call hatred simply makes things move too fast? And so it is now condemned in most people's nervous systems. Sympathize immediately. They don't analyze it. They didn't acquire it. They were born with it. That yes, hatred is very, very bad. Very, very bad. Hatred is the prime cause, one of the prime causes of man's imperfection. What if that's not true? What if hatred is a wonderful drug? What if hatred is a wonderful weapon, but it's too wonderful? It's too fast. As far as the immediate needs of life, and immediate needs of life, to your nervous system's recollection, the immediate needs, which could be a second to life, is at least the last 4,000 or 5,000 years of your time. But the immediate need still is that, wait a minute, that kind of hatred makes things move too fast. Nobody, well, this is the name of a fair rhetorical question, because out in the city I suddenly remember that ordinary people's tried to make something out of this, that there seems to be great spurts of progress of all kinds, technological, psychological, intellectually, after wars. These terrible, terrible things of wars, blood and guts, raping and rampaging and pillorying. And then it gets over, and it's like some group that was involved with it takes a quantum leap. That's just something I heard one time. I read that somewhere. All right. We got a little tape left, a couple more things. I pointed out, I was commenting a couple of tapes back about that a real revolutionist would not let any mortal be his hero. Not theoretically, not sit down and plan it. It's just the kind of thing that there was no easy way to talk about. I just made a statement and talked about it a little bit, that you should see on your own that there is nobody, your nervous system knows it, there is nobody fit to be your hero. There is no human fit to be a hero. And yet everybody has a feeling that there are heroes. A little update, a little addition. Let me also point that there is no ordinary part of you that you should allow to be your hero. And there is. There is in everybody. No? It's your belief that you can perfect yourself as you are. That there is simply some missing piece to you. That you got your own king, that is, your own self, and he has just one or two little foibles, and all you got to do is go up to the king and say, "King, baby, let me tell you you would be a king among kings if you were just so-and-so. Don't raise your hand to the king unless you're going ahead and kill him. You don't go up to the king and say, you know what? I've always admired you as a king. I mean," he goes, "Yeah." You say, "You're a great king. I love you. Who else do I love? Who do I love? But you, king." And he goes, "Yeah, yeah." And you say, "But," and you've raised your hand, and kings don't take kindly to that. He is your hero. You still complain. Now you say, "Well, I'm not perfect, and I'm not really my hero." There is a part of you, and everybody, is going to take ordinary aspects of you as your hero. That is the belief that the ordinary aspects of me, my own king as it is, can be perfected. I'm just missing a little piece. You should not let any part of you, the ordinary you, be your hero. There is no ordinary part of you that is heroic. Another little update I let come out one time, those of you who heard it, I was stuck in several times in that fictitious code of revolutionary conduct about getting out of debt. Don't ever get in debt. Stay out of debt. The getting and the staying out of debt is not simply a fiscal affair. Didn't some of you suspect that? The literal part is true. None of you have any business being in debt. You shouldn't go in debt. There's nothing that you, I'm not going into that because it seems to stretch people's nervous system. But none of you have any business being in debt, period. But other than that, the getting and the staying out of debt is not merely a fiscal affair. You are in debt to people that you three-dimensionally hate. And you can't ever pay it off. You keep trying. But ordinary hate does not work. Now, I've told you how to do it. It's like abandoning all debts. Not forgive them, abandon them. Whoever owes you, forget it. You'll never collect. And you can't, there's no profit in trying to analyze through your ordinary consciousness about, well, perhaps they didn't really mistreat me that way. And give me a break. That's already in your nervous system. That is already implanted as part of your nervous system that they mistreated you. That happened at city level. There's no way to go back and undo that night. You abandon it. You'll never collect it. You've been trying to collect it. Well, I'll hate them more. I'll start talking about them. I've hated them kind of in silence. But now every time their name comes up, or anytime I can work it in, I'll talk about them. I'll increase the intensity of my hatred. That's not the opposite. That's not the way to do it. The way to do it is blue circuit abandonment of them. In this case, what I'm describing metaphorically is the abandonment of the debt. You don't forgive the debt. You don't set it aside like, well, I collected some other time. You abandon all debts. Then you're out of debt. Nobody can make you get back in debt. Not a revolutionist. Except him or herself. And you can only do that by liking or disliking people. And that's not a revolutionist view. There's no good human word for it. You either accept them, you tolerate them, such as you had a choice, or you abandon them. But it's total abandonment. It would be the real, full, four-dimensional definition of the word ignore. The same way that people who do not like music, you ask them later, what was playing on the music for the 2 hours we were talking? There was music playing? I didn't notice. The true ignorance of people, the true abandonment of people, is you see somebody that you have abandoned, whether it be literally, or the higher circuits, the yellow circuit wants to suddenly remember them, or does remember them. There it is. You see them as you see them, and you don't see them. They just don't exist. It's not a trick. You can do it. They exist in the 3D world, but that's not where your consciousness is. The debt, the mistreatment, was real enough there at the 3D world, but that is not now where you bank. That is not now where you do business. Well, okay, I'll stop. That's the way you feel. But I trust someday you'll remember this when you